Hello, my name is Katie and I am a certified recovery coach at the Rutland Turning Point Center. Today I have joining me Tracy Hauk, who is our executive director, Jen Loso, who is our recovery coach supervisor, and Tanya Wright, who is our associate director. We're here to talk about some events that we have coming up and what that has looked like, getting those events together and how they've grown over the years to help bring more awareness to stigma and addiction and recovery and all those things that affect our community. So with that being said, I would like to ask the question about what inspired the first Stomping Out Stigma event.
So we did our first Stomping Out Stigma event in 2019, I believe.
I think so.
Yep. When we started Stomping Out Stigma, it was really an event that we wanted to do just really to bring awareness about people living in recovery, people in our community trying to find recovery from substance use. I guess the thinking really was like, we used to talk a lot about when people entered recovery, it was like they would disappear, drop off the face of the earth. And so like you could never really get a good gauge on how many people we have in our community that are every day fighting hard to be productive and to be a part of the community and to do all the things they need to do to change their life. And we just wanted to celebrate that work, the work that people do every day, that we all do every day, and kind of like bring the community together and just show people that recovery is possible. And there's a lot of people in this community that are living in recovery. And also, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of people that didn't make it. And so it's kind of like celebrating the people that we've lost, celebrating the people that are still fighting, and just really bringing our community together.
I also think the stigma of having a substance use issue, you know, when people get into recovery, they're afraid to bring that out because people still continue to think they're bad people and they're going to do crime and they're going to do this or that and you know, but being proud that you did the work to get into recovery and you're maintaining your recovery every day and you become a productive member of society. You know, I think, you know, it's hard to get into recovery and maintain your recovery, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And, you know, addiction, you know, isolation is the worst thing for people that are struggling with addiction. So if you have to feel like you have to keep everything a secret when you're trying to get better or you do get better, it just makes people isolate more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there for its conception, but you know, the first annual. But ever since from the second annual on, I've been there, you know, and it's always been something for me, like a way to show the community that like people in recovery are still people, you know, and people who struggle with substance use, misuse, I guess, are people, you know, and just kind of changing that language and how, you know, we interact with each other, you know, as like, you know, equals as human beings, you know, as opposed to an us and them type of thing. So I think, you know, it's very good at like raising that awareness for the community, but also letting those who struggle with being stigmatized know that, you know, it's not because of them in any way, you know, that they are, you know, worthy to be a part of the community still. So
I think personally for me, because I was a registered nurse that had an addiction to prescription pills, and you know, when I first got in recovery, I didn't know any nurses. I knew there were a lot of nurses and people in the medical profession that have substance use issue, but they keep it a secret, even if they're in recovery. And I looked for nurses that have been through it for that peer support. but I couldn't find any because it was a secret, and that bothers me. Like, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, it doesn't matter what, you know, socioeconomic status you're in, it affects everybody. And just this constant thing that it's only these people that struggle with addiction.
Yeah, the
Bothers
people
me.
under the bridge.
Right.
That
right.
idea that
The homeless people, the, you know, and that's not true.
And that's the reason that people are apprehensive about getting help, because they don't want that label. Because if you're a professional, if you have children, you know, if you're someone in the community who kind of stands out, you don't, that's very frightening to have that kind of label attached to you. And you know, by doing that, we're pushing everybody back, and we are not allowing people who need help to get help. And that's,
I mean, we celebrate other things, people that struggle with cancer diagnosis and survives, and, you know, all of that, you know, that is all, you know, everybody rallies around that. But it seems hard that anybody rallies around anybody trying to get into recovery, right? Because they just keep them stuck in the same thing that they were doing before, and they label them like that. So it's being able to look at change in people and change in their behaviors, and, you know, how they become more vested in their community in a positive way.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, Tanya, with like, when we do recover and get better, we kind of just fit back into society and become, you know, working parents or family members or siblings. And it's not, we're not boasting about how we had this horrible addiction for so long and look how, you know, far we've come. And I know, like, for myself, concealing that in certain jobs, opportunities and whatnot, I felt like I could not express that I was in recovery because it would attach some kind of judgment to me, and then all of a sudden people would be more watchful of me and what I was doing, and to make sure I wasn't doing this.
right.
So just like that.
You're not trusted, you miss opportunities, you see yourself a certain way, which impacts everything you do.
Yeah, I know personally, like in other types of settings and whatnot, when I have, after so much time, expressed that I am in recovery, people are shocked and they can't picture me out there using, you know, IV or whatever it was I was doing before that.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole idea. It's just like that shouldn't hold people back from being honest and feel like they can't fit into certain roles or whatever if they accidentally let something slip or whatever that is. But yeah. And the first one was a recovery walk, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to do a 5K, but it was like the first event that we planned, so it was like we kind of had no idea what we were up against, to be honest.
You mean you don't have a background in event coordination?
No, I'm not an event coordinator. So we kind of, just in order to kind of make the event go more smoothly, we kind of just downsized it a little bit. We had a walk, we made signs, people that came to the center, staff, other agencies, people in the community, we just all came together and made recovery signs, and then we took a little lap, like down West Street and around the block.
Like gun whales and then back up Center Street.
Just to be loud and, you know, kind of
Yeah.
look at us, here we are.
Yeah, to look at people in recovery doing the right things, people you might not think would be.
Right.
Well, with
Basically
that
what we
being
said.
said, I mean, people forget that, you know, addiction is, you know, is not picky. Like, it can happen to anybody. You know, addiction doesn't discriminate. So, you know, so seeing all these different people together kind of shows that too, you know, and just raises that awareness as well. Because you know, for a long time, it was always a very us and them type of feel. So, yeah, it helps with that.
Was there community partners who tabled at that first event too? Yeah.
Yep, there was a ton of people, and then we had speakers, and music and food and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And then I know, like Jen, I wasn't there for the first one or not, but the one I distinctly remember is when Tracy got into the sumo suit and wrestled
Sumo
with Kyle.
wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Well, that was because we do the Thursday cafe we hit so many meals, right? And that was the promise after so many meals.
200
given out.
meals. I think it was when we hit serving 200 meals in one Thursday cafe.
Yeah, that you get in a sumo suit.
That
and
I got
wrestle.
to do that. I think I broke my toe in the process. I think I had my suit inflated way too much, so I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get up every time I got knocked down. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
My face was beat red. I think people thought they
Oh,
were
it was
going to
so
have to
hot
call
that
the
day.
paramedics.
It was hot.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Might not have been the best idea to get into a
But I
sumo
think
suit.
these events, because I always think like people that identify as being, I hate using the word, but an addict or an alcoholic, that's where the problem starts. But I think, bringing the awareness when there is people that are maybe beginning to go down that path, misusing substances, alcohol, is huge, and I know lots of people that wouldn't identify as alcoholics, but I see their behaviors around drinking, and it does create havoc in their family. And I would like people to start taking a look at that, right, and having a conversation around that, because, you see it on social media all the time. People are saying, "Oh, I don't have any problem with that in my family. Nobody struggles with that." Well, I don't know, but I think if you looked hard, everybody has that one family member that if you have a big family event, like a wedding or something like that, that you think, "Oh, I wonder what this person's going to bring to the table today." Like what kind of chaos. And I think we really need to start questioning about that if a family member, because otherwise you're just enabling the behavior to continue.
I was that family member.
I was too.
So, it was very much, like, it's kind of like when, I did a group where we, kind of like studied the dysfunctional family. And, me, when I started getting better and doing the right things, and, it's like they didn't know what to do. They're like, wait, because I was always, that black sheep. I was always, that one. But now it's nice, to see like my dad or my grandmother smile at me like sincerely because they know, how well I've done. At first it wasn't like that, because it took me a while to understand that, I broke a lot of trust, hurt a lot of people. So, and that's just something that us as addicts, we go through, and it is hard, but, we definitely do recover. And we can become, upstanding citizens again. That there, as long as we're breathing, there's always hope for that.
Yeah. And so with those like events growing and stuff, I know we've done it down at Meadow Street Park here in Rutland the past couple of years, and now we're bringing it back to Main Street. I think in doing that, it gets a lot more like foot traffic and recognition. Like you said with the first one, having it at Main Street Park kind of just put it in people's faces that we were here and, that we're recovering. And
Yeah, we want that visibility. We want to be right in the middle of everything. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and to, welcome whoever may see the event going on, to come and take part of and meet people. It's one thing to read somebody as like a Facebook post, right, of things that they've done. It's another to see them actually taking a part in their community and helping out and giving back and being a productive member of society. And that's essentially, like, I feel that's how we break stigma for people, is to show others that that's what happens when we get better, that it's not a moral deficiency, that, just because we've lost that choice to make good choices when we're out there actively using doesn't mean when we stop we can't be those people who we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that made me think of something also. Stigma kind of goes both ways if you really look at it. There's the stigma against people who may be doing something differently if they're struggling with substance or they have mental health issues. But also, as people who use drugs, we also stigmatize people, because when I first got into recovery, I remember the way that I thought about kind of the other half of the community. Like, they don't care about us. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as people in recovery or as people using drugs, we also stigmatize people in a way by not reaching out and allowing people to help us or support us, and by thinking that our community doesn't care what happens to us, or that people are just going to automatically treat us a certain way. We don't give people the opportunity either to show they do care, or they do want to help, or they are there for you. So I don't know, that thought just kind of came to my head. Like, you have to allow people to help you, and you have to know that you are a part of the community and you do belong as such, as part of the community, and as a person kind of just adding to our community, and don't automatically think people view you a certain way.
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea around that, with having the community partners come and table, is kind of like showing that side of it, that even if they're not directly affected or involved with any kind of addiction issues themselves, that they're there to support people and help people and let them know that the community does care about them, and they're not just, you know what I mean, another
Lost cause.
Yeah. And I mean, what I think it was forensics, when they tabled last year, they brought a miniature unicorn with them, which was pretty awesome.
It was.
So yeah, they bring a lot of like fun and stuff to the event too, and it's nice to see them there. And I know we work with them like on a day-to-day basis, but to kind of have a place to all get together and celebrate the same things and the differences is pretty cool.
It is. Yeah.
It reminds me that we're all, none of us are perfect. Even people that maybe don't get in, an addiction or, struggle with drugs or alcohol, but it also shows that, as much as we have work to do, they as well do, right? But we can be so quick to point out they need to, work on this and kind of, support us better in this. But then it's also we got to give them that grace too, and, understand that they may be learning too. And so education, educating is a big part of Stomping Out Stigma too, I think. So.
And I think a lot of people that don't struggle with addiction don't understand what goes into recovery, right? It's not just about stopping using drugs or alcohol. It's about changing your behavior. It's taking ownership of your action. It's changing from self-centered behavior to being mindful of maybe how you react in a situation that's emotionally driven. We learned to make amends through our recovery process, kind of doing our own daily inventory, getting validation from ourselves versus always trying to get validation from other people, right? So it's more that inner work. And, you can stop drugs and alcohol, but old behaviors like that, you have to monitor, you have to be aware when they're starting to come back again so that you stay healthier. And it's not just the minute you stop drugs and alcohol, it's every day of the rest of your life, being mindful of, doing unto others as you would like them to do unto you. And, I know when I first got in recovery, about a year after I was in recovery, the doctor that I had forged, he's a local doctor, he wanted to go to lunch to talk to me about, addiction. And when I explained to him my path was 12 steps back then, and when I told him about what's involved in 12 steps, he said, "Oh, that sounds like something everybody should do."
Right. we all have something to improve on, whether we're an addict or not, whether, we struggled or we don't, now, like, there's always something to improve on, whether it's, behaviors or habits, and, that goes for everybody, not just, people who struggle with substance misuse. That's for everybody. We all, need to be mindful that there's something we can improve on. And I think we just would work so much better with each other if we kept that, in our minds. So.
Yeah. And so this year, with us doing it at Main Street Park, I know we've done, what events have we done in the past? We've done like the Hot Nut Challenge, right?
Yeah, Death Nuts Challenge.
Death Nuts.
The pie eating
Pie eating,
contest.
yeah.
Yep.
The sumo wrestling. I can't recall other one.
There's always something. I think we've always tried to do something a little bit fun during it.
Yeah, well, I know this year we're going for the cornhole tournament.
Yeah.
Trying to get that going, and with that, people can be there, same day to sign up for it and have their team. And we're hoping to do like trophies for first, second, and third, possibly T-shirts. We gotta look at how things go, but I think having that helps to bring another crowd of people in on top of different speakers and whatnot. And we have DJ Mega's coming.
Yep.
So we'll have music, working on the food vendors, firming up details and stuff. So have that coming up. And then I know we talked about, stigma and it being isolating and stuff, and kind of with that, how that's led us into having our Overdose Awareness Day Candlelight Vigil. I know we were talking before how you, me, and Mike had gone up to Montpelier, right, for their Overdose Awareness Day, and we watched them they bang the drum for each life that was lost, and that's kind of where our idea from it originated, and kind of taking that. And last year was the first one that we did down there at Evelyn Park.
Yeah.
And it was raining, and we had candles that we're trying to keep lit in the
Yeah,
rain,
yeah,
which was a bit tough, but
We pulled it
We
off.
did it.
yeah.
Rain or shine.
Man, I think with that event, it's like good for people to know that's like open for anybody that, it has affected, to acknowledge the grief of people who've been left behind, to acknowledge the people that we've lost, the lives, and that they were more than just another number. I know that's been like the main idea behind it, and just to offer that community support to people who might feel isolated in their own grief of things, because that is a whole nother level of hard, especially if you're somebody who's in recovery yourself and having to deal with the loss of somebody that didn't make it out. There's that whole other side to it.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult in recovery. Losing somebody to an overdose, it's difficult for everybody involved, family, friends, community. When you're in recovery, or at least myself, I in the past have wondered, you kind of look at it like, why? It's sad.
Like, it
Why
could've
did
been
I
me,
make it?
right.
Why
And the
why are
lost
so many
potential,
people
the
gone?
lost potential of
Yes,
people. I mean, we've
yeah.
seen so many people that have successfully gotten into recovery and work hard to maintain their program. And when you see that change in them, I can't put it into words. It's like the light comes on in their eyes, and they're a different person.
So watching somebody really like come to life again. Yeah.
And when we lose people before they get to that point, it just seems like an even more tremendous loss.
Such a waste.
It
'Cause it
is.
didn't have to happen.
Right.
And that's another thing that stigma does. We lose people because of it. It doesn't have to be that way.
And it's sad. We've lost a lot of people, and then you don't even see an obituary in the paper. You just hear about it word of mouth, and it's like, where's the dignity for that person?
Right. And so that's the point of really Overdose Awareness, our event, just kind of remembering the people that have passed and
supporting the families
celebrating
in
their
whatever
life,
way they
supporting
need it.
family. Yep. Yeah. If anyone has any or has any questions or needs any information, you can always feel free to come by Turning Point. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's the thing about Turning Point and anything we do, everyone's always welcome.
Yep.
Yep.
No appointments needed. You can walk in.
Right.
Yeah. And so with all that being said, these two events, I like to think of it as we're shutting down Main Street Park for 2 weekends in a row because they go back to back. So it is August 31st, which is a Sunday, will be our Overdose Awareness Day Candlelight Vigil. And that will go from 1 to 3 p.m. at Main Street Park. And then the following Saturday is our Stomping Out Stigma annual event. This is our 6th Stomping Out Stigma. And that will be at Main Street Park as well from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.